sales, business, and entrepreneurship. If you're interested in any of these three topics, you're in the right place. In today's episode of the Seeds of Success podcast, we had Jeremy DeMerchant come on the show, who is a seasoned sales pro with over 2 decades of selling experience, starting from age 14. And then he spun off his own agency, Permission to Sell, in order to help other individuals, entrepreneurs, and organizations grow simultaneously. He talks about how he spun off, why he did, how you can as well, some different tactics and strategies for growing your business or agency. He talks about starting a software company in order to continuously help clients and fill gaps in different ways. So it was really cool to learn about the philosophies and systems that he has used that can help you in whatever you're pursuing in your entrepreneurship journey or your career as a whole. Jeremy is a well-rounded individual with hobbies around travel and public speaking. He's an author. He has spoken globally on stages. He is, most importantly, a tremendous father and husband. And so without further ado, we will go ahead and jump into this episode with Jeremy DeMerchant. All right, here we go. Jeremy DeMerchant, welcome to the Seeds of Success podcast. It's very nice to have you. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Colin.
You bet. I want to just kick it off today with Jeremy. Why don't you fill the audience in on who you are, what you're about, how you got to where you are today, where things started, however you want to take that. I'm going to go ahead and just hand it over to you.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks so much. Yeah, my name is Jeremy DeMerchant. I got into sales, I guess when I was 14, I kind of started to fall in love with sales.
Okay.
Working at a little convenience store across the road from my house. And what I got really excited about, so I used to be a super nerdy kid,
Mm-hmm.
super antisocial. And I got behind the counter of this store and I started to learn to build rapport very quickly with adults.
Mm.
And I didn't get along with kids at all. But what I realized is that if I could pay attention to what they needed and give them a good level of service, and at the time, it doesn't offend anybody, but it was like basically how fast I could get them the pack of cigarettes over the counter because that was
Okay.
the biggest thing that we sold. But I could have, the right kind of cigarette on the counter for the person, like before the car had gotten into park in the driveway.
Hmm.
I got to know people so well.
Hmm.
And sort of evolved into, you can't work in a convenience store forever for most people, but ended up going through the call center scene. Learned that I loved having a dialer and people just blasting into my ear. And it was just like, bam, you hear a beep and you go. And it's like the trigger going off at a race.
It's like a rush.
Yeah. And a
Yeah,
lot of
like an
people really
adrenaline
didn't
thrill.
enjoy it. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, if I had a dialer and I didn't have to physically do the dialing, like I could go all day.
Right.
And I get really excited about sales. And then I had a guy who's now one of my best friends, but he was a bit of a mentor to me then, gave me a shot at becoming a coach
Hmm.
in this call center. And I had no experience doing coaching. I had no idea what it was. But then realized that I could, have a limited amount of impact individually doing sales myself. But if I could just increase each person on a team of like 30 people by 10%, then I'm having an exponential impact. And I found it more fun too. So I got into coaching and that sort of accelerated, I guess, my sales
Hmm.
career. Fast forward a few years, end up in a frontline position and then leadership position at two online universities,
Okay.
which is very interesting. Phone
Mm-hmm.
conversation to close a $30,000 or $40,000 deal.
Mm-hmm.
Completely changed the way I sold.
Mm-hmm.
And once I left there, I thought, you know what? It's great that I can make people a pile of money, or companies a pile of money through sales teams. But how nice would it be if I could help multiple companies grow at once and maybe get a bigger piece of the pie while I'm doing it?
Hmm.
And at that point, launched my own sales consulting company. Did that for, well, that was 2014 when I did that. And Up till a couple of years ago, that was my primary focus, and then recently added in some software into the mix because I found that people were asking for guidance on the software side, and I kept referring them to other pieces of software that did part of the job really well, but didn't really get it all.
Mm.
And so it was people were shoveling out thousands of dollars in additional software to get the job done to support what they wanted to do in building their sales processes. And I was able to help find and create a solution that could let them do it for a fraction of the cost, and has just meshed really well with the sales consultant.
Mm.
So here I am today.
And here we are. Appreciate the backstory. So just to make sure the audience is understanding. So started selling at age 14,
Yep.
basically on your own street, so to speak.
Yep.
And then, a couple decades later, through your own sales experience, call centers, frontline management, leadership, right? Couple decades in sales, then you decided to spin off your own consultancy, which Permission to Sell is
That's right.
what was that agency? Okay,
Yep.
in order to help multiple companies grow at the same time, and ultimately, that is beneficial to you as well from an impact standpoint, financial standpoint. I have a question for you that I was curious about. So,
Yeah.
permission to sell. Why
Mhm.
permission?
So I call it the best idea of 2014 that I came up with.
Okay.
I was sitting there at a temporary job at an online uni or no, this is actually an in-person university. I
Hmm.
went back and finished a degree. And I was sitting there when
Okay.
I was supposed to be working and trying to think up names for this consultancy. And I'm like, "Oh,
Okay.
well, what am I good at? Sales conversations is kind of what I do." And I came up with some other one. I bought the domain, but I think it was convertingconversations.com. And then something in the moment just thought permission to sell. Well, before you can really do a good job, you've got to give yourself permission to
Mm.
go out and offer your products to promote yourself.
Hmm.
And it's not even so much about getting permission from the client, although you want to make sure that they're in the right mindset, but you got to give yourself permission. And where I'm in Atlantic Canada, which is next to Maine, and we're very, I guess the right word is maybe we're shy,
Mm.
modest, and we don't like to brag. I mean, I'm the exception. I'm okay bragging because I understand marketing, but in general, we don't. So I found myself having conversations with people, even people like in startups, where I say, look, like you got to go be proud about the things you've done. You got to give yourself permission to go out and sell. And so that was sort of, I didn't even realize at the time. I just it happened to flow off the tongue when I was looking for domains,
Hmm.
but it really did align with what my core message was about from a coaching perspective. Like you've got to just go for it because if you're so scared to offend someone, you're never going to help anybody make a tough decision.
Hmm.
So you got to give yourself the permission. And at the same note, you also want to make sure that you're not being too pushy and like creating a negative experience for somebody because yes, you might only have one shot to help somebody make a decision that can change their life,
Hmm.
but you also don't want to ruin the opportunity for your engagement with them, but two, you don't want to have the experience of the families that in the 80s and 90s where the door-to-door salesman came in and stuck their foot in the door to sell an encyclopedia,
Hmm.
right? And just they have that stereotypical icky feel of sales. So
Hmm.
that's where the permission comes from. It's yes, you need to have some form of permission from the client, but you got to give yourself permission first. And before you or until you get to that point, you're always going to struggle in sales.
I, I I appreciate the insight on that because I found it to be an interesting word choice because oftentimes we can find ourselves not wanting to advocate for the thing that we're actually trying to sell, or that can have the potential to positively impact somebody or something or some organization for their entire life. And so I think that it is I appreciate that about the word choice. And sometimes things just pop in our head and they sound good and it rolls off the tongue, as you say, but there is more meaning behind that the way that I saw it. And it really stuck out to me because in sales, as you mentioned, we don't want to come across as too pushy, but it's also important to be proud of what we're doing because of the impact and change it can have in people's lives. I think back to the first coach that I ever hired. I didn't go actively seeking a coach at that time. He just, you know, slightly prefaced that he does some coaching. He dug some, asked me some questions, and then he challenged me just enough in my way of thinking after hearing about where I currently was, where I wanted to go in my career, and then challenging me to potentially think differently about a coaching route that we could go. And so without him like actually adding value in that moment, but then also taking my initial pushback and no, and then asking me some deeper level questions that inherently, allowed me to open up. And he gave himself permission to ask me those questions. And then I said yes. And I'm so glad that I went through the coaching. Right. And it's like,
Mhm.
we'll never have those experiences or the solutions that we were looking for that we didn't even know we might be looking for without somebody, without the permission from the other individual to actually come out and advocate for that. So cool. I just wanted to tap into that because I thought it was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so the consultancy, permission to sell. So you still run that, and then you're running
Yep.
Sales Edge, which is your technology and
Mhm.
software business that you started, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. How did you go about starting a software company? Because it sounds like you were working with clients and companies on, sales
Mhm.
specific, work. And then I would assume you identified some gaps in their processes that were probably slowing them down. A term that you have coined is speed to lead. Maybe that's
Mhm.
where a little of this comes from. But talk to us a little bit about Sales Edge
Yeah.
and kind of how that spun up.
So, first of all, I will say when I started in the coaching business, the world of affiliate marketing was one that I was very intrigued by because
Yeah,
there's
right.
always things that go with what you do.
Mhm.
And I'm a, I don't want to say a lazy salesperson, but I'm not great at follow up.
Mm,
Let me rephrase that. It's not that I'm not great. I don't prioritize it the way I should, which is the case with most people.
mhm,
And so when I can leverage technology or certain strategies, which maybe we'll talk about in a bit, to make it so I don't need to do the traditional like chase process to chase someone down to get them back on a call, that is a huge advantage for me. And so from the technology side, if I can make my process easier for me,
mhm,
that means I can typically make someone else's process easier for them. And most people, unless they've got full marketing departments or like full, sales teams, and even in those cases, sometimes there's some big gaps in what they could be doing to create better results. And often the technology is something that was either there when the current person in charge stepped into the role, or if it's more of a smaller business like a coach or a consultant,
mhm,
they just found the one that most people were using that they knew, and they haven't thought about all the moving pieces. And I ran into a lot of people who were keeping track of their business on a spreadsheet, and that breaks my heart because a
mm,
spreadsheet is nice to reference, but it's not going to actually help you in your sales process.
mhm,
So I found myself referring people out to these different tools, like, and I will drop names because these companies are good. They're technically my competitors now, but they're still really good companies.
mhm,
Like for email marketing, I would send people to Active Campaign
mm,
because they've got a robust automation system. I feel like they're getting kind of pricey in the marketplace at the moment, but the systems are good. Or if they didn't have a CRM, like I would start them on something like Pipedrive or
mm,
SalesMate, which would allow them to just have the ability to not only track their deals, but be able to give them notifications when they needed to do that follow up.
mhm.
And then everybody and their dog uses Calendly now for calendar link, but there's better ways to do it. So I kept sending people different ways, and even for me myself,
I don't know why that just popped up.
that's an Apple thing, yeah.
Yeah.
um, but for um the like the calendar systems and like people would just there was big gaps, I guess, is the short version of what I'm making
Yeah.
a long story out of. And instead of having to say, look, let me sign you up with Active Campaign, and then I'm going to sign you up with Pipe Drive, and then I'm going to, and I like was putting them in 6 different software that didn't really nicely play together. And I also found that
Mm.
things like um the calendar system. Me, sometimes I would have clients hire me and they'd ask me to just jump on and do sales calls as like a way to either create a script because I don't like to create scripts from scratch. I want to get into the flow,
Mhm.
based on my gut, what do I think needs to come from it? And I found myself in scenarios where I had to pull like busy times from 4 or 5 different calendars at a time. And I only found one other system that ever allowed me to do that.
Mm.
And it was very expensive for the business owner. So I thought, well, like, how can I first of all, make it easier for them, have one system that can solve these problems. And two, make it easier for me because linking all these things together was getting to be a real pain. And the worst of it all was that if something went wrong with an active campaign or a pipe drive or whatever, they'd call me to fix it. And it
Mm.
wasn't my
It's
problem,
not your
right?
technology. Yeah.
No, no.
No.
So I thought, you know what?
Mm.
How can I find a way
Mm.
to give somebody these resources and make it really easy?
Right.
And so, in full transparency, I didn't start it from scratch. I like the efficient route. I found a company that had a great system that's been around for,
Perfect.
I think we're 7+ years now. And I said, great, how can I take what they have, modify it, tweak it so that it's more focused towards my audience, which is mainly coaches, consultants, and sales teams.
Mhm.
Although we've got people that run dance studios as well, and bakeries, and like it's interesting because it can really help anybody, but trying to stick with the from a marketing perspective for the coaches, consultants, and sales teams. And like, how do I make it customized for them so that it actually can supercharge what they're doing? And so that's how Sales Edge was born. It's got software that's has a huge track record, and combining the existing technology with my sales experience, and most of my clients end up getting some benefits of coaching just in the process,
Mhm.
just as I'm helping them build out systems. So that's the how, the why, I guess.
So did you I'm sorry if I misunderstood. Did
It's okay.
you purchase so you saw a company who was doing something similar. You liked kind of the back end, the infrastructure, kind of the the bones if you will of the software. Did you replicate it or did you actually buy them or what do you
So
or am
here's the
I don't
beauty.
know if I'm
So
allowed to ask this
no,
if you're
that's
willing to
okay.
share.
No, yeah, I'm willing to share. Here's the thing. I'm about transparency, right?
Cool.
Um, so my platform is built. It's a white label version of what's
Got it.
called, which is very popular in the marketplace. And the difference is, though, and I think this is important when I talk about, I'm essentially building on top of an existing software.
Mhm.
It's the differences are I've put the system together for one, better 24-hour support. I've got a full support team that helps people through live chat. They can jump on Zoom calls and it doesn't have to be me, which is nice.
Mm.
But two, I also do a live support call for my users every Wednesday night,
Cool.
because I want to have that face to face, that experience. I'm still at a stage where people are essentially jumping in because they want to support me. They like me and my energy. But there's been people that came on and said, "Oh, is this?" And so being able to combine that, and it really is the support and getting people, um, making the progress
Mm.
with people, not just saying, "Here's the tech," because the tech is
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
And if someone is watching this, and they want to look, totally go for it. In fact, message me if you want to look at it. I've got an affiliate link. Hey, you can do that too.
Mhm.
Um, but the I think the key is having the resources or support to make your business grow. It's not the tool itself. Like, I can hand you a screwdriver. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean you're suddenly a carpenter,
Mhm.
right? Or whatever. And so in like that, the guidance is so key. So yeah, we've taken the software that is phenomenal, and there's lots of different other like software you can white label. So anybody looking to have some kind of software support in their business, like, look at someone that can white label it, so you don't need to spend the $100,000 on
Mhm.
developing something.
Mhm.
I did that in the past on when the project and dev costs were insane, and I just eventually left it to my business partner because it didn't make financial sense for me. So this was the beauty. And now Sales Edge has what I think, a nearly untouchable combination of the tech that is high level and the systems and the resources that make life so much easier.
Mm.
One thing I'm super excited about is I believe we've got the best affiliate program software that exists right now as part of it. So you want to go out and promote something and have, your colleagues promote something. Finding a good affiliate program is really hard. There used to be some great ones and they don't exist anymore. And the one in Sales Edge is the only one on the market that I can find right now that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, that can track, like when someone sends you an opt-in, it can
Mm-hmm.
be credited back to you. So you sent the lead. And as of today, we also have automated payments. So someone sells something, you want to give them 10%, 20%, can automate that payment for you. So
Mm-hmm.
that's sort of one of the many things that it can do. But in the online marketing space, whether you're a coach or a consultant or even a sales team, being able to take your existing customers and turn them into your sales force
Mm-hmm.
is so efficient.
So smart.
Yeah. In fact, I think 70 to 80% of the users on Sales Edge right now are referrals
Mm.
because I have a killer affiliate program too.
Is boots on the ground working for you. And
Yeah.
I mean, you touched on my immediate question was going to be, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this show, looking to
Mhm.
grow their brand, looking to scale, and you see affiliate marketing, you see, um, you know, um, what do you, partnership sort of aspect to it. What is the word I'm looking
Mhm.
for? Ambassadorship, I think
Mhm.
is the word that I was looking for.
Sure.
How
Yeah.
do you go about actually kicking one off? Or like, what were some of the first steps that you took to launch an affiliate program?
So for me, so when I first started, the first person that signed up was a friend of mine. She's a
Okay,
speaking coach.
nice.
And I just kept talking about it, and I was still nervous about pulling the trigger and even having her on the platform because I was
Yeah.
still testing it all out. And she's like, "Would you stop talking about it and sign me up already? Come on."
Mm,
I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I said, "You know what? Why don't we? Well, what if I, give you an incentive to go out and promote it?" She's like, "Tell me more." I'm like, "Well, first
mhm,
of all, I want you to love it, and this is still holds true. I don't want people to do it just for the money. I want people that love the platform first, and then want to go brag about it."
mhm,
So in her case, I just said, "Hey, like you're my first customer. You're definitely going to be my first affiliate." So, and I worked out in her case, it was a special deal to be the first person.
of course.
And then she went and told two more people, and I'm like, "Oh, this is working. Cool."
Mhm,
And
mhm,
so then more formally structured my affiliate program. And just when someone came in and said, "Hey, great, let me tell you about my program, just in case you want to promote, no pressure."
yeah, yeah,
But, and it's when they've been in it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and they start like really seeing the momentum grow.
mhm,
I'm like, "Hey, by the way," and I always talk about it at first, but I don't make it a big deal so people don't remember. So 3 months in, I'll check in with somebody and say, "By the way, you're loving it. Awesome. You know some other people that might
mhm,
love it too?" "Totally."
mhm,
"Well, remember, got a killer affiliate program."
mhm,
Like, "Oh, that's right."
mm,
And suddenly it just boosts the fire under them to
mm.
go introduce me to people.
Yeah. So working that into your I would assume somewhat automated follow-up process, learning about your
Yeah.
follow-up game here.
Yep.
Um, cool. Always interested to hear how to more easily scale, right? Ways
Hmm.
to automate things. And so when you got, people that I can trust advocating for you, giving them permission, right, to go out and do this on your behalf, especially when they like, and trust the brand, the tech, the product, whatever it is. So cool. For anybody listening and you have your own thing you're trying to grow, you're trying to scale, affiliate marketing, way to go. Ambassadorship, people advocating on your behalf is something to check out if you haven't done that already. Um,
I will say
Jer
before you move on, real quick, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
And if anyone's starting to like look at affiliate marketing from the perspective of they just want to promote someone else's stuff,
Mm,
I will give this advice: find a product that will pay you on a recurring basis, because then
okay.
it truly becomes an income stream. So, for
Mm,
example, in my world of promoting other people's CRMs. I never chose something just because it made me more money.
Hmm.
But there were some that were really great systems, and suddenly, like, they would only pay commission on the first year, and like that's cool. But I and many other programs, I pay commission for as long as they stay a customer, like forever. And part of it is because I want that camaraderie in my community. So if
Hmm.
someone's like, oh, I'm not sure about this, they can go to the person that referred them. And of course, they want them to, make the most of the program anyway. But there's also a little financial incentive to make them go, come on, let's see if we can fix the problem if there's something that comes up. So if you're considering getting into the affiliate marketing space from the perspective of just promoting, look for products that have recurring, ongoing affiliate fees, and it just makes your life easier. So you're not always looking for the next thing to make you $10.
And is that recurring? Like, are you talking monthly recurring? You talking annual recurring? How do you structure it if you're willing to
I
share?
Yeah, I structure mine based on whatever the payment is. So people can sign
Okay.
up with me monthly or annually.
Okay.
And so
Got it.
if they jump in annually, or if they jump in monthly, let's say,
Hmm.
30 days later, you as the affiliate, you get your payment, and I do 25%.
Got
So
it.
you get 25% recurring as long as they stay on. And
Super cool.
I've
So
got
as long as
many.
they are a customer, so say
Yep.
I brought on, right, I told Sally Sue down the road about Sales Edge. She signs on for, call it 10K a month,
Sure.
right? There would be
Yeah. Mhm.
some, I would get kickback of whatever the percent is, or these little emojis. I would get the kickback monthly recurring as long as Sally Sue is a a
Yeah.
a, a partner, or you a
Yep.
customer in
Customer. Yep.
perpetuity. Got it.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Cool. Good things to look out for individuals looking for affiliate marketing, and if you're thinking about how to actually put one in place for yourself and your own business.
Yeah.
So I wanted to transition over to
Mhm.
something that I believe you to be interested in. It's around mindset,
Mhm.
right? I before the show, I like to ask everybody, what are you super excited to talk about right now? And that was like the first thing that you put on there was mindset. And so I don't know if you had anything specific you wanted to talk about. I could ask you some specific questions, but um, what do you think is important when it comes to mindset for a business owner or customers that you work with? Or maybe what are some of the challenges that you see that are recurring themes that you help solve for? And like, how are you thinking about mindset nowadays?
So I guess the easiest way to talk about it is the biggest challenges that I see. Um,
Mhm.
One, I would consider myself a really good salesperson. And I've seen like a lot of killer salespeople. And a lot of times I find that a business owner thinks that bringing on a salesperson is going to change the game for them. I'm going to bring my sales guy on,
Mm,
and he's just going to kill. He's going to go hunting down, and most business owners don't think about the different roles within sales,
right.
and so they think one rock star coming in is going to make all the difference, and it could be that way. But you're going to pay an arm and a leg for that kind of person.
Mhm.
Or they're going to bring a commission sales rep in. Oh, don't worry, I don't pay them until they close. Yeah, it's going to take you forever to train them up. And it's the moment that they don't see a path to get paid, they're going to leave
Mhm.
you.
Mm,
So I think it's important to really segment the role of sales in a company. So that's sort of a business owner mindset conversation. Whether it's like a lead generation role, whether it's an outreach role, whether it's an account management role for people who are already on board.
mhm.
There's different pieces, and my recommendation is figure out what somebody's really good at and let them do that and
Mm,
that alone, and you'll have better results. Like for me,
mhm.
you put me in a role where I'm doing sales conversations, I'm in heaven. I love to talk to people, love to get to know people, love to solve problems for people. But if you have me doing the follow up, like I mentioned, I'm not the ideal person to do a
Mhm.
follow up or the like outreach stuff. Not a big fan of it personally. It's important, but that's not where my magic comes from. And so that's one thing I would say from a business owner mindset. But the real core piece that I run into is around the idea of sales and money,
Mhm.
and people really getting hesitant to go and ask for the sale, or they're nervous. Like I've got a few key rules when it comes to my coaching and sales processes that I do. And one is this. One is always offer the highest level of support that's appropriate to solve the person's problem. Now, what does that translate into in a sales context? Well,
Mm-hmm.
I recommend when I work with coaches and consultants that they have at least three levels of offerings. So one, normally it's the high ticket stuff. Maybe it's a done for you or it's a one-on-one kind of deal. And then maybe you've got like a group program or a mastermind and then a course, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of people will have a conversation with somebody. They'll give indications that maybe they don't have a lot of money and they're going to go, okay, and just offer them a course. And the problem with that is you've taken the decision out of their hands on being able to accelerate their progress. And now, if I instead say, hey, and I offer maybe the one on one version, it's the most expensive, maybe it's not the right fit. But if I give the one on one, which is the high ticket offer, one, they can still make the decision, yes or no. Two, they know I have it now. And three, when I go down and do a downsell, that it has something to like anchor their price point to. So if I say $30,000 to work with me one on one, but my mastermind is only $5,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
that psychologically is a huge price gap. But if I didn't talk about a $30,000 offer, 5,000 bucks can seem like a lot. And so it works for many, many reasons. But the core rule is the short version is don't judge on what somebody can pay based on your initial conversation.
Totally.
But the way I look at it is if you always offer the highest level of support that's appropriate, worst case they're going to do is say no. And then
Mm-hmm.
you can offer the next one that's most appropriate.
A lot easier to go down than up, depending on
Yeah.
where you start.
Mhm.
And also important to note that when somebody says they don't have a lot of money, that is a totally different meaning depending on who you're talking to,
Mhm.
right? If Sally Sue down the road says, I don't have a lot of money, but she's freaking loaded, then that's a different conversation. If you're talking to somebody who, they got, if we're talking the 5,035 grand, they're like 500 bucks is, what they're willing, like, it's totally, dependent on
Mhm.
who we're talking to. And to your point, not to judge and not to make any assumptions and to, offer your service or your solution, give yourself permission to offer that because and have belief in the value that you're going to provide and know that you can and will solve their problems and their challenges, and then you can always go down from there. So I think that is some great rules of thumb and points of consideration. So you mentioned also around limiting self beliefs when it came to pricing and sales and services. What did you mean by that exactly?
So I often come across a situation where people feel like the way to make things feel more valuable
Mhm.
is to lower the price because they're thinking, oh, they pay less,
Mm.
they get more, it's a better ratio. And if somebody is buying like a widget, I don't know, whatever, like an item that is just a thing, that may be true, right? If I go and buy a new wallet, let's say, and I've got a wallet that's $30 and one that's $70 and they look
Mhm.
like they're the same,
Mhm.
okay, I'm probably going to guess the $30 one is better value if they look similar.
Right.
But I found that in a situation where people need to put in the work to get the outcome, specifically in the coaching space, you've got to want to improve your processes, you've got to want to improve your mindset. You need that emotional buy-in, I've found that the more you charge, the more likely they are to get the results. And so if you come in cheap, you're cheapening their entire experience.
Mhm.
And so when you come in at a higher price, yes, you're going to get more people that are going to say, I can't do it.
Mhm.
And that's okay. Put them into your group program or your course or whatever. That's
Mhm.
fine. That's why we have Dan cells. But for the people that can, like the moment, let me tell a quick story here. My first coach, his name is Joshua David Hayward. And I remember talking to him. I was 4 or 5 months in the business, and it was my first month full time. Had quit my job, had literally no other income coming in. and I was super stressed coming towards the end of the month, and like I was kind of freaking out. And so I had my session with him, and he said, "Well, how much do you want to charge?" I'm like, I want to charge like 5 grand a month, man." He's like, "Then do it." I'm like, "Well, I can't do that." I said, "Well, why not?" Oh, and then I had all the stories in my head, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, well, people will say no, and then out of nowhere, like I don't know what to attribute this to, but out of nowhere, someone reaches out, messages me through my website. Nobody really contacts you through your contact page on a website, but he did. Reached out. He said, "Hey, I heard you on a couple different podcasts. I love your vibe. Feel like you'd be a great fit. Would love to have a conversation with you." So we have our one-on-one kind of a strategy session. And I decided this person wasn't a lead that I had in my world. Let me just go and try it. Like ask for the amount that I want.
Mhm.
And I remember, I remember like it was yesterday. I was on go-to meeting, and it was like 2015. And I remember at the end of the conversation, I got to the price, and I said, "And the investment to work with me for the year is $30,000. And if you paid it up front, I'd give a $5,000 discount." And I sat there and I stared at my reflection in the camera, making sure I didn't move a muscle. And I just shut my mouth and I just stared in pure silence. And the reason I did this is because another rule, if you want, that we're going to pull a bunch of rules from this conversation. The rule is once you've given the person all the information they need to make a decision, anything else you say becomes a distraction.
Mm.
So just shut up and let them think. And whether they got to go, well, if I got to move money from this bank account, I can probably do it. Like you don't want to interrupt that process.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't like the silence. They'll go, but I'll give you this deal. Or, and they'll almost like negotiate themselves down for no reason. If you can sit in the silence and let someone think, again, worst thing they're going to do is say no.
Mhm.
And this gentleman came back and said, if I pay for 4 months up front, can I get some kind of discount? I'm like, yeah, okay, great. Because and we went on and worked together for the next 8 months.
Amazing.
He jokingly says that he sold his house to work with me. It's kind of joking, but he did actually sell his house. Uh, and we turned him from going from running an accounting firm, not running an accounting firm, he was an accountant for a
Mhm.
big firm, to running masterminds and enrolling people at $10,000 and $30,000, and he had 100K in the first 6 months. And it wasn't me, like I helped, I guided, but it was the kind of person that you get
Mhm.
when you're willing to price yourself properly. This guy was a rock star. It was a huge stretch for him. He cut off his entire income, 100+ thousand dollars he had coming in, cut it off, sold his house, not just to work with me, but that's where the money came from to pay for it. And back up to 100K in his own business. And now he's actually onto another business, but he's doing a killer job. Moved to a country that's even cheaper to live. So he's got this much higher quality of life versus sitting in an accounting office in Canada, not enjoying things. So just don't underprice yourself. And it's for all the reasons that you don't think it is.
Mm. There's so many things that I want to touch on in that. It's an awesome story because I think it comes back to what we initially talked about, which is giving yourself permission to stick to your value, right? You know that you deliver an awesome service and you were very clear on your ICP, your ideal customer profile, right? Like
Mhm.
you know who you wanted to work with. You knew that you could help this individual and you had the price that you knew you wanted to stick to. Was it a little outside of your comfort zone? It sounds like it was.
Mhm.
And especially to say it live and on a call. So for those listening, have that price. Know your worth and know your value. Give yourself permission to say it confidently, even though it can be uncomfortable, and then stand by it because then you're going to attract the type of people that you actually want to work with and are your ideal customer profiles. And so it's a super cool story. And it's also it reminds me of a couple things of one, when I first worked with that coach, he told me he does a 6 month program. And I said, okay, cool. Do you do like a 2 or 3 month, or can I like just do a month to try it out? And he said, no. He said, I will only do a 6 month because you will not see the result. Chances are you won't see the results that I know you're going to get if we stick to it and actually commit to this for 6 months. And so it allowed me to also buy into the process, right? Because oftentimes, as I'm sure you have either seen in the industry or seen with clients, you do it for a month, you're not going to get a ton of results right off the bat, but you got to stick with the process in order to actually see the return on investment over time. So I think that was something that I was thinking about as well. And even I run a little, side coaching gig, like up and coming professionals, sales, business entrepreneurship type stuff, life coaching sort of business. And I remember increasing my price. What was it? Maybe like 30% over the next year, because I was like, you know what? My time is a lot more limited, and I am strapped with things going on in life. I'm just going to say this number. Let's see what happens. And there was not even a blink of a consideration. And he was like, cool, done. And I was like, wow, I probably could have done even more. So just to know, like, for people to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Awesome story. I want to transition to the final four questions as we come up on
Sure.
time here. And
Mhm.
for those listening, it is almost 10 p.m. here for Jeremy. And so I just want to give that shout out to Jeremy, and appreciate you being on at 9 p.m. your time,
All
and
good.
with kids in bed and whole family in the background. So appreciate that.
Of
Um,
course.
but the final four questions that we ask everybody on the show, and this first one's kind of exciting as we can relate to it. But what is your number one book that you recommend most to others?
So if you would have asked me 2 years ago, it would have been a different answer. But
Cool. How it goes in life.
yeah, well, and part of it is because I actually did some work with this author. In fact, I was involved with his team when he was promoting the book.
Cool.
But the
Thought I
book
saw
is
that.
Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell.
Right.
And I'm I love the woo woo. I like the getting yourself pumped up. I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan. In fact, the Tony Robbins book almost made it to being my answer for this. But when I actually thought what actually is the book that I truly recommend the most,
Mm-hmm.
it's Buy Back Your Time, because is probably the most tactical book that you can have in the productivity space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very much like, it does have the mindset and why you got to do these things, but very tactical. In fact, I was in a mastermind group with a couple other guys, and everything we were doing, we kept going, let's go back to the Bible of Dan. And it
Mm.
was, and it was all the pieces that he
The
outlines in the
Bible of
book.
Dan.
Yeah. Like, and he just does such an amazing job. And he's a great guy. He's actually from a couple hours from where I physically am
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a rock star all over the world with his, help building his own SaaS companies and helping um, build other people's SaaS companies. Like, amazing guy.
Mm.
But I love the book. It is so practical. Um, it's like woo woo 2%, practical 98%, and like you can't get through a chapter without going, oh my gosh, this makes so
Mm-hmm.
much sense.
And something that you can apply right here and right now. Is
Yep,
do you have like
absolutely.
one key takeaway from the book that you
Yeah.
implemented, right? I mean, I'm sure you have plenty, but what's one that comes to mind?
So I think the biggest one, um, and this is actually a big one, is when he talks about getting your time back. The first time suck that he gets entrepreneurs to give up is their inbox.
Mm.
He talks about bringing somebody on, training them, and there's a process he has in the book for training them on how to manage your inbox. And so now in his world, and ideally anyone that implements this, he doesn't see an email unless someone else has already filtered it first. So he
Mm.
never has to look at junk mail. He never has to look at something that can be answered with a template. He never has to look at something that in fact, for him, he probably sees like 2 emails a week anyway, because his team is so good at managing it. He doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But he talks about how on a daily basis, he'll have a conversation with his admin, going through, just basically saying, hey, what did you come across that you weren't sure how to handle? They talk it through. Essentially, it's all trained. then she never has to come back for that situation again. And it just keeps going off the plate. So the inbox is the biggest thing. Like I look at mine right now, and truthfully, I've got, hang on, I'll actually click and give you the number. I'm scared to do it. One of my inboxes has 50,316 unread emails.
Oh boy, that's a
Now,
lifetime.
that doesn't mean I didn't glance at them and scroll
Right.
through them. It just means I didn't feel like they were important enough to click on.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's how much crap's on my inbox. But imagine never having to look at the inbox, or at least a special inbox that's already been filtered.
And just be able to look at what is most important, right? Like
Yeah.
what has been filtered enough to where it's actually hitting your eyes to where you are the one required to make a decision on it because it is of, so much importance and prioritization for you running the business. So
Yeah.
very cool. Buy back your time, Dan Martell from Kelowna, Canada. I'll actually be driving up there in about a week, 2 weeks from tomorrow to go
Oh, nice.
have Dan on the podcast. So I'll
Oh,
be at
oh, there.
Martell Media
Oh,
doing
there
doing
we
the thing
go.
and
There we go.
meeting Dan myself, which I'm super excited
Oh,
about.
nice. Awesome.
That's all I saw that on there. I'm like, where is the conversation was meant to be right here, Jeremy.
That's awesome.
Second question is, what is a quote that you live by?
So some people think it's corny, but that's all right. The quote, and I have it sitting in front of me,
I love it.
it's just sitting in, with God, all things are possible,
Mm,
which is Matthew 19:26.
hmm
And the reason why it's so important to me is because for a long time, I had a really big ego, and I was like,
hmm
I got this, I can handle this. And like, you could throw things at me, and I was really good at just figuring things out on the fly. But in the entrepreneurial world, especially if it's just you on your own or you in a small team, it can very quickly
mm,
get, I don't want to use the word lonely, although that's probably appropriate. But what I'm really looking for is it you you get less of that ongoing feedback to reinforce that you're doing well.
mm,
And it's easy to focus on the things that didn't go so well
right.
and make that the story of your day.
hmm
And suddenly you start to doubt yourself. And like, this is also the similar reason why I say that like coaching for free is a horrible idea, because people don't get the results and coaches quit before they get started,
hmm
because people aren't engaged. But with this, if you can put yourself in a position to believe that you're not running your business alone, even if you technically are at a human level, just think about, and I don't want to get all preachy on your podcast, but the idea that you could have the most powerful being that exists being the CEO of your company
mm,
and guiding you. And if you just think of it that way, how would that change the decisions you made in the run of a day? Or if you had something that you were intimidated by, but you knew you should have had, like maybe it's that speaking gig that you're nervous to say yes to
mm,
because it's the first one or it's the biggest one you've done. And to think, you know what? I got backup.
hmm
Like it just gives you this extra bit of confidence. And, obviously, if someone doesn't believe, then this is not going to make any sense to them, or they're going to think I'm crazy, and that's okay. But from my experience, like there has been so many things that go so much further beyond what I as a human could do and can even
mm,
rationalize.
hmm
So whenever I think, I don't know if I can do that, I just glance down at my monitor and I've got the
hmm
cross sitting there and I'm like, oh, you know what, I can. And then it's a question of should I or not can
hmm
I or not. And I think it just changes the conversation with things.
I think a couple key points to take away is one, you have your source directly in front of you, right?
Yeah.
So anybody listening, whether you believe in God, higher power, universe, whatever it is for you, that is, having that directly in front of you, reminding you that A, you're not alone, but B, to give you the confidence as you mentioned, but also the courage to continue to
Mm,
take action when you're not getting the feedback that you had mentioned, because oftentimes that can be a driving force working within a company or an organization. You're hearing that you're doing a great job, you're getting positive reinforcement, you're on your own, you're doing the thing, and it's you and then whatever you are reminding yourself of. So, and I changed my phrasing of how I used to ask. I used to say, "What's your favorite quote?" But now I change it to, "What is the quote that you live by?" So when I see that you have this in front of you, yeah, I see that you are actually living this day in, day out. So it's super cool. Um, Question three is, and
Mhm.
thank you for being vulnerable with us here
Yeah,
on the
of
show.
course.
Question three is, what is a bucket list item that sets your soul on fire when you think about it?
So I don't know why this has been in my mind for as long as it's been, but for as long as I can remember professionally, I've wanted to go to Dubai. And as I went and launched my business, I thought, well, actually, it's always been professionally. My goal has either been to make enough money that I can travel the world,
Okay.
or work for a company that'll send me all over the world for work. And it just
Hmm.
so happens that I'm in a spot for both at the moment, which is great. But Dubai has been on the list of places that I would like to speak. And I think part of it was one of
So
my
sick.
first yeah, one of the first mentors I had. I mentioned the convenience store I worked at when I was
Hmm.
a kid. It was a Lebanese family, and so I've always been very intrigued by the Middle Eastern cultures,
Cool.
and so I think that was kind of had something to do with it. And so it's been on my list. And the first time I went to a big mastermind, I met someone there who I just had never met before, a total stranger, and I shared that, like, I want to be on a stage speaking in Dubai, and he said, "Let's make it happen."
Mm,
What?
mm,
And like the plan, it ended up falling through, unfortunately. But um, if it had gone well, like within a year from that moment, I would have been on stage hosting my own event in Dubai. And I'm like, it really can happen. Like before, it was just kind of this pipe dream,
right? When
and
it's
now
in
I
your
know
own
it can
head.
happen.
And then when you put it out into
Yeah.
the universe and it's reinforced in a way that you were not expecting for
Mhm.
how they were going to respond, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, this could actually be a real thing. And then it
Yeah.
becomes real. Hmm.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it still hasn't quite come true yet. But still on the vision board. It's in front of me every day,
I love it.
and we're getting there.
And we're
It'll
watering
happen.
that seed of success right now, my friend.
There we go.
Yep.
Exactly.
Another
Exactly.
reminder that it's about to happen. That is such a cool one too, because it's a combination of multiple things, right? It's your passion for travel,
Mhm.
the Middle Eastern culture, which sounds like you've had that instilled with you, since way back when you started,
Yep.
in your sales,
Mhm.
but also your actual career. So it kind of combines everything that you're super passionate about. I really enjoyed learning about that one. So cool. Last question here is, this actually stemmed from a mentor of mine. I was going through my own journey in life and figuring out what to do next from career standpoint, moving standpoint, couple of life decisions. And he just sat me down, and I was pretty young at the time. And he's like, Colin, what would 65-year-old you say to you right now? And it gave me so much clarity when I thought about it. And so that's the question here, Jeremy, is however you want to take that, what would 65-year-old Jeremy say to you current day right now?
So I'll be transparent with your listeners. Luckily, you sent this to me in advance because I took some time to really think about it.
Hmm.
Um, and it actually forced me to be reflective, right? Like, what,
Mm.
it's not just what would a 65-year-old say to like a younger version of me, but like today.
Hmm.
And it's almost like it reminded me of in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talking about, imagining all these mentors around a table, his mastermind, giving him the feedback. And it's sort of like putting yourself at a level of all knowing as much as you can be. But I think more clarity than we normally have in a normal day to day
Hmm.
situation. And what came to me was fairly simple, but it was, you're on track, stay the course.
Mm.
And I think for me, in my life, so many things are going really, really well. I haven't really talked about this yet, but on the family front, I literally have my dream family.
Mm.
I've dreamt of being a father since I was, I don't know, 18 years old. And it took a while, but here I am at, what am I, 42, I think. um, and just had my second child. And like
It's amazing.
everything is slowly lining up.
Mm,
And yes, I've got big business goals and I always want to go for more, but I feel it. Like the momentum is there, the
mhm,
alignment's there. And so as long as I don't lose the courage, as long as I don't shrink, and one of the biggest mistakes I think I've made throughout my business is if I start to have doubts about something, I've shut it down. Like I've had memberships that were growing and I
mhm,
wasn't sure I was delivering value. So I got nervous and I just shut it down.
mm,
And as long as I, looking back, like in a lot better place if I just made it better, stop shutting things down. But so for me, if it's just I'm doing it, I'm going through the motions, I can
mhm,
absolutely get better. But to not completely shift directions when I feel like something isn't where it needs to be, but to just make the tweak needed
mhm,
to bring it back into alignment.
mhm.
So that's, you're on track, stay the course. That's
You're on
the
track.
core of what came to me.
You said simple, but Jeremy, simplicity is powerful, right? It doesn't need to be, oh, we don't need often we can easily overcomplicate things. And so I appreciated um I appreciated that response because it's a reminder for myself to stay the course. You're on track. It's a gentle reminder that we're right where we're supposed to be. You know, we have to have been to where we were to get to where we are, and just keep staying the course and make the necessary adjustments and give yourself the permission to continue making those adjustments to add the value that you're capable of adding. So, well, Jeremy, it's probably a little past 10 p.m. your time. We're gonna go ahead and we can wrap the show right there. Really appreciate you coming on. This was an awesome conversation. Really appreciate you coming and sharing your knowledge, your expertise, some of your playbooks, transparency into the ways that you think, the way that you operate. So just thank you very much for coming on the Seeds of Success podcast. And I don't know if you have
Oh, my
any
pleasure.
final thoughts or anything, but we can go ahead and
Yeah,
wrap things.
if
But
I could, I would actually
yeah,
love to offer a gift to your listeners, if
beautiful.
that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
So I've got this resource that I put together, and it initially started as part of my coaching for that one client that
Hmm.
signed up for the $30,000. And he referred to it as one of the most amazing resources he's ever had, especially for, well, it wasn't free for him because it was part of his coaching program,
Hmm.
but I give it away now for free. And it's called the 5 C's of Successful Sales Conversations.
Okay.
It's a PDF, pin it up on your wall or wherever, and it'll actually guide you through having a really powerful sales conversation that helps you dig in to really help people understand where the
Mm,
gap is between where they are and where they want to be.
mm,
So if your audience wants to pick that up, they can go to salesedge.io/gift,
okay.
and just a free download. They can opt to give the email to where I send it to, and we'll shoot it over to them. Um, and then if you want to learn more about Sales Edge, that'll also give you a chance to get some of that information as well.
Cool. I'll include that in the show notes as well. So it's super easy to get to. Thank you in advance for
Oh,
everybody that does utilize the resource. And even for those listening that are not in sales, what a technique to be able to just have powerful conversations in general of helping individuals get to where they are. I mean, this is for mothers, fathers, friends, relationships, whether you're just
it
trying to
yeah.
negotiate your own deal with freaking Verizon or whatever, right? Um,
Negotiate your deal with a 2.5-year-old. That's how I'm using it in my life right
good
now.
luck. Good luck.
Yeah, right.
So, well, hey, Jeremy, I appreciate it, man. I'll go ahead and we can wrap things there and appreciate you coming on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it.
All right. You bet.